practice social distancing. On local cable, you can, if the meeting can be viewed on cable channel 6 and AT&T UVerse channel 99. Streaming online, www.glendaleca.gov. For public comments and questions during the meeting, you can call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting these questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person during the Glendale Housing Authority meeting. Thank you. May we have roll call, please?
Authority Member Agajanian.
Present.
Brotman.
Here.
Kasakian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Parazian.
Here.
Chair Devine.
Here. Thank you. And what's next, please?
Next would be the agenda for the November 3rd, 2020 regular meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority was posted on Tuesday, October 27, 2020 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And next? Approval of minutes.
Next would be approval of minutes.
Thank you. And is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that.
I'll move for it.
Thank you. And hearing no objections, the minutes stand approved as submitted. What is next, please?
Next would be oral communication. There are no calls.
Thank you. And next, the agenda item, business agenda.
Yeah, 6A Community Development regarding selection of an affordable housing developer in response to a request for qualifications issued by the Housing Authority July 29th, 2020 to develop an affordable housing project for families on Housing Authority owned property at 900 East Broadway. It was continued from 10/27/2020. One, motion authorizing the executive director to execute an exclusive negotiating agreement with Meta Housing Corporation for the purpose of negotiating an agreement to develop an affordable housing development for families on Housing Authority-owned property at 900 East Broadway. 2, motion directing staff regarding selection process. 3, motion selecting another proposer for purposes of negotiating an agreement to develop an affordable housing development for families on Housing Authority-owned property at 900 East Broadway.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Galanian to
Yes.
Mr. Ford.
Yes, thank you. Housing Authority Chair Devine, members of the Housing Authority, as you recall, last week on October 27th, Mr. Mike Fortney, our Principal Housing Project Manager, provided a comprehensive report on this item that's been presented to you again. During the deliberations, there was a number of questions that was raised regarding the 9% federal tax credit and the requirement for 25% three-bedroom and 25% two-bedroom units. And we were directed that staff connect with the authority on that subject, on the tax credit. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fortney to provide a response to those questions based on his research and his contact with our architect, the consultant, as well as the Federal Tax Credit Authority. Mr. Fortney.
Thank you, Mr. Editor. Mike Fortney.
Microphone.
Microphone's not on, Mike.
Mike.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Housing Authority Chair Devine, Housing Authority Board members, Mike Fortney, Principal Housing Project Manager for the city. So the subject property, 900 East Broadway, developer selection, again, we went through that last week. There was a couple of questions that were raised that we wanted to address. The first, we had indicated that the unit mix, particularly with the respect to the 2 and 3 bedroom units, that there's a minimum of 25% based on TCAC rules of section 103.25, paragraph G, subparagraph 1A, that requires a minimum of 25% of the units in a family project to be 2-bedroom and 25% of the units be 3-bedroom. So the unit mix that we had presented met that minimum so that we were able to get as many studio and 1-bedroom units in the product as we could. So the question then was asked just to go back to the Tax Credit Allocation Committee and confirm whether or not there's any ability for TCAC to waive that requirement. So we did reach out to TCAC, and they are unable to waive that requirement. It's a regulation. They don't they don't have the ability to waive that requirement. There is an ability for them to waive that requirement for projects that are at risk, but that has nothing to do with our project here in Glendale. At-risk projects are projects that are already built, they're already operating, and they're at risk of losing their financial feasibility. So that's the only way that they could do that. And then we also did double check with them and confirm that in fact it is a rule placed on units and not, they're unable to calculate it any other way, such as on a square footage basis. So we did reach out. We did get that. We got the answer. Unfortunately, that we may not want to have had, but that is what it is. The other question that had come up that staff had heard was kind of a question as to whether or not there's a demand in the city of Glendale for larger units, 2 and 3 bedroom in particular, for affordable housing. So we did look at that as well. We have built a total of 9% affordable housing tax credits in the city of Glendale in the past 15 years. Of those 9, 7 have been family units, family projects, and 2 have been senior, with the most recent being Vista Grande Court, that we just opened up less than a year ago. So we took a look at the unit mix of our 7 family projects funded under the 9% program. And what we saw was several of those projects did not have a single, actually none of the projects had a studio unit in them. Most of them are all 2 and 3 bedroom projects. There was one that had a single 1 bedroom apartment in it, the rest were 2 and 3. And then there was one for Veterans Village, which we didn't open up too long ago. And that did have a unit mix not unlike what we're proposing here. It didn't have studios, but it was almost 50% 1 bedroom and then the balance 2 and 3 bedroom. And I think the reason for that was because of the population we were serving, where it was families, but it was a preference for veterans and their families. So it was similar to the unit mix that we're proposing at 900 East Broadway. And then to speak on the demand, we typically receive between 80 and 100 applications for every unit we build. So the demand is overwhelming for the 2 and 3 bedroom unit projects as well as for the senior projects. We tend to get a little bit less applications for senior projects only because it has a requirement that you be 62 years of age or older. So naturally, the younger population won't apply. But there's also a lot of other factors involved in the number of applications that we'll get for a particular project. Things such as the project itself, whether it's a new project or a rehab project, the population that we're serving, if it's got a local preference or not, will dictate how many applications we get. So there's a lot of different factors, but generally speaking, we get between 80 and 100. And then there was a question, I think, there was a process that we conducted, a lottery process that we conducted not too long ago, and that was the 5 density bonus projects in the city that have an element of affordable housing to it. That was the project where we got 18,500 and I believe 31 applications. Massive application. So not to be confused with Vista Grande where we got about 6,000. Yeah, so
31 units.
for 31 units, exactly right. And I looked at the unit mix for that, and it is a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units in those 31 units. So the demand was overwhelming for that. And we have seen in the past where a market rate project that has a percentage of affordable, a density bonus project, they tend to get an overwhelming number of applications, as we saw on that 5 project. So we wanted to just come back tonight and address those 2 things. And of course, I'm happy to address any other questions that may have come up in the past week and revisit the project if you need me to.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Fortney, and thank you to you and staff for doing this research for us to get these questions answered. I'd like to go to my colleagues. Do we have any phone calls on this item?
No, we don't, Chair Devine.
Okay,
Ms. Devine?
Thank you.
Ms. Devine?
Mayor, you may go first.
Yes. First, we go to G002, please, on the report. in the report, G002.
An exhibit?
G002.
Yes, that's exhibit.
Found it?
Yeah.
Do we have it? Okay. On the left side, I'm looking at the left side. First, last week, I guess this is a probably typo. Now we have studio 25 units. We have 1 bedroom 20, 2 bedroom 23, 3 bedroom 24. If you add up, that comes to 92. Last week you had 93.
Plus,
There's a manager's unit that's not included in those numbers.
Manager unit?
Yeah, there's a manager's unit that's a two-bedroom
I
unit.
know, but last week the manager unit was part of this. How come last week was not important, this week became important?
I apologize, but this is
Okay.
This is the exact same thing that
All
was
right.
presented last
Okay,
week.
that's fine.
Okay,
But however, it's 93 units.
That's right.
Whether he's manager or not, is 93 units. But my question was, and is, I have a problem with this because since last week, I looked into this again. First, there is a building 920 also, which it's not part of today's report, right?
that's correct, yes.
Okay, over there, we have 39 units. And that 39 units in there, in my opinion, because when you add the square footage, as I said last week, the square footage of 25 units of one studio and 20 units of one bedroom, it's approximately comes to 22,000 square feet. When you add the two bedroom, which is 23 units of two bedroom, and three bedroom is 24 units, when you add up those two, square footage wise, they come to 42,500 square feet. So this is two bedroom and three bedrooms, the square footage wise, they have twice, they're larger square footage wise. It's twice as the square footage of studio and one bedroom. And now I was thinking for 902 building,
920.
so why we don't, I'm sorry?
920 building.
920, I mean, 920. 920, I said before, but anyway, 920. I was thinking why we don't make this one as studios and one bedrooms, the entire building. The way I'm calculating it, it will be 135 units. And then we move the two bedrooms, three bedrooms, or one bedroom, if it need will be, to the other, to 920, and make the other one affordable for families. Where then you can have, if we go with 25% as has been mentioned here, still we're gonna have 10 apartment of 3 bedrooms. The need now is more on studio, 1 bedroom, and possibly 2 bedroom. 3 bedroom, I think we have to have fewer units of 3 bedrooms. So why we don't switch everything from 920 to 900, and whatever we're gonna do with 900, move it to 920. With that, the way I calculate, I don't know, it will become, we're gonna have 30 units more, at least, if not more. I mean, at least 30 units more. It means 30 more families in Glendale, they're gonna have opportunity to get affordable housing.
If you would like me to address that,
Yes,
Mayor.
please.
We did do some analysis ourselves internally, and I think I heard you say 135 units is potentially what we'd see at the 900 site if we went to
Yes.
seniors. We agree with that. I think we calculated about 144 units.
Yeah,
So
I
we,
said 135 based
yeah,
on the.
so we think we could actually
That's
achieve a little
better.
bit more.
In fact, it's better.
Right. So, yes, we think we could achieve 51 units of senior at 900 East Broadway, and that'd be a roughly equal number of studios and one bedrooms. And had the RFQ been issued in July for a senior product, we would have designed about 144 units. And then we also looked at 920, the possibility of that being a family project. I just want to say, because it is a historic building, we can't change the exterior walls, obviously. We have to preserve those
Yeah.
buildings. There's some efficiency loss in trying to design residential units at all into those buildings that were never designed for residential. But the transition into studios and one bedrooms is so much easier than for families, because I'll give you an example. 117 South Belmont, the corridors are less than 9 feet wide with the central hallway. So very, very challenging to make larger units out of it. However, we went through the exercise with our architect, KFA, and staff as well. And what we determined, safely, we could probably get 20 units in the 920 building if we were to go a family. So roughly 10 units of studio and one bedroom, 5 two bedroom, 5 3 bedroom. We think we can achieve that, possibly 22, but to be safe, 20. So we would lose 19 units on 920 East Broadway, but we would gain 51 units on 900 East Broadway. So that would be a net gain of 32 units between the two projects.
That's right.
And then I do want to just point out, those are households served. It is important, though, to at least point out, though, it would be a net loss of 16 beds. So even if you increase the unit count by 32, you lose the bed count by 16. So there is that difference. And so we looked at the historic buildings, knowing the interior, just the way they are, how it's just much easier and more efficient for us to put smaller units in there. But you could possibly achieve 20 units in there if you went family.
But I think on 920, it's possible to do it, although maybe some challenges, but I met lots of intelligent architects and engineers in the past that I know that they can make it possible. I mean, this is not something that they can't do. That's 20 units in that historic building is not difficult to accomplish.
No,
But at the end, we will gain 32 more units.
Right. We're not questioning the fact. You can, in fact, go and build 20 family units in historic buildings.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just so that you have the full picture, when we say you lose 16 beds, 16 people less that you're housing. You have more units, but 16 people less that you're housing. Now, they would probably be more senior as opposed to families, but that's the picture. Beyond that, though, the project at 20 or 22 units probably is not eligible and competitive for the 9% tax credits. So we would have to look for a different funding source to do that, to pick up those units.
No, but I'm
and if
sorry.
we-
I'm sorry. You're just talking about that 20 units, not the 145 units.
Correct.
The 145 is not in any danger.
Correct.
The 20 units might be more challenging to get it financed.
Well, yes, we think that it will cost you more to finance that. Would fall back to the 4% tax credits. They're becoming a little bit more competitive, but still we think that you could probably get that. The Housing Authority would have to put in more money into the project to make that happen. Third item for all of you to consider if you want to do this is we would have to scrap what we've already worked on and start over again. We would miss the March and most likely the July tax credits. So that puts the projects, both projects, back another year before we could apply for that tax credit.
Why?
And-
But what we have done is just these drawings. We didn't do much. I mean, whatever you have to do, still you have to do. This is just The
redesign.
basic drawings in engineering for architect, what has been done is basic work has been done. These are pictures. Most of the pages are pictures. Why it has to be delayed?
Mr. Mayor, if you wanted to go back out, you would have the time to do an RFQ. Get people to apply, because remember, we decided back in July, you, the Housing Authority, decided in July that this would be a family project. So we went out and we recruited a developer for a family project. Now, you may have had people that were interested in a senior project, but said, it's family, so I'm not going to propose. Now, if you wanted to award to Meta based on their proposal for family to do senior, we would still need to redraw and redesign the project. And we would be wanting to be looking at the other side as well. That will just take us some time. I said we would probably lose March. We wouldn't be ready for March. We may miss July, and that would push it back a year.
Why you miss July? Let's say, okay. But still, we have until March, we have 5 months. But let's say, okay, we missed it. What about July? Why we have to miss July?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know how much work we have to put into it. That's why I say we may miss it. If the Housing Authority wanted us to go back out and do a recruitment, remember, we started in July, that's 4 months to where we are today. So another 4 months puts us into February. Now, if we select somebody, we still need to design the project based on that selection, unless we again entitle the project at the same time. I think we would lose March, we may lose July. At best case, we push it back 3 months.
I can't imagine to do what we're having here to miss July. It's hard for me to believe.
Well,
That's-
Mr. Mayor, let's see what our colleagues have to say about this. I understand
Okay.
what your position is. Do I have any comments from my colleagues on this? Whether we should switch, whether we should turn around and start all over again, or are we satisfied and happy with the project that's before us? Comments?
If I may,
Yes,
Mr. Robbins?
please.
yeah, I'm happy with the project as it's been proposed, and I'm prepared to move forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Najarian, how about you?
Thank you. Well, I posed my questions last week about the proper mix of affordable units. I do believe, again, I said, and this was anecdotally, that our greatest demand is for the smaller units, not the 2 and 3 bedroom. So everything else being equal, the old economic term, and I'm not sure everything else is equal, but if everything else was equal, I would prefer to see the 920, the historical building, be the family, and the new at 9, well, maybe I have it backwards. The new construction to be a senior, the historic to be a family. And I don't know, and we have these unanswered questions that staff just highlighted that we don't know if that'll kick us back on the tax credit round, or whether we have to go back for RFPs again. But everything else being equal, that's the way I would prefer to see it.
Okay, Councilmember Kasakian.
Yeah, I concur with Councilmember Najarian. Overall, I think we need to be able to squeeze out the largest number of units for the largest number of need. I understand staff's concern about, the less number of beds is the less people, the less number of beds equals the number of less people will be able to house. But that's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison, because if we're looking at needs, we look at what our lists are of people who are awaiting to receive affordable housing, and we look at the population currently that's most at risk. It is definitely seniors who are on a fixed income. There are people who can't go out and get another job at this part of their life to be able to make ends meet. They are incredibly fixed in their income, and I think a healthy community is one where we can house as many seniors as possible, or at least have as many units as possible. So, if it's going to cause some sort of delay, then it causes a delay. But if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right.
Ms. Devine,
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
I cannot imagine as an engineer that we can't do this by July. That's beyond me. I don't know. Negotiate with one contractor. Why we don't do that? I mean, if whoever you have chosen for this project, we did this before. If we want not to have any delay, is there, Mr. Garcia? Is there any legal problem to negotiate with whoever they have picked up for this project?
Mr. Mayor, Madam Chair and members of the Housing Authority, no, the city could negotiate directly. I would note that it's contrary to the Housing Authority's established policy for selecting developers that was established a number of years ago. But there is a process by which the Housing Authority can choose to work with one particular a developer. I would note that that couldn't occur today because it's not part of your agenda. I mean, the item is, do you want to go forward with the project as proposed, as pursuant to your previous direction, or not? And if not, then you need to provide direction to your staff on the next steps. And then staff will go forward.
I understand that. We have to follow the process, but there is no problem after we discuss and everybody agrees that to do that, to pick up one contractor and not to go and do RFP. There is no problem. After we decide.
It depends on your definition of no problem. It's legal, yes.
It's legal, okay.
Okay, and my question, Mr. Garcia, if I may, is would we have to reissue another RFQ, or can we still go with
Meta housing.
Thank you, Meta Housing? Would they want to, or what kind of situation would we be in if we changed our minds in midstream?
Council member, it would be legal to negotiate with one developer. Meta has done senior projects before, I'm sure. We would just note that we went through this process with a group of experienced affordable housing developers who thought that they were bidding on or proposing on a family project, and it does, it may have an impact future down the road, but it's certainly legal to negotiate with one developer. You just can't do it today. You can't give that direction today because that's not on your agenda.
Okay, Ms. Prazi, and I'm going to get to you next. If you don't mind, I just want to say a couple of things, and then I would love to hear your opinion. But it seems like we have heard 4 or 5 good reasons why we should continue on this path that we agreed on in the beginning. First of all, the authority decided back when that this should be a family development. Number 2, if we do this configuration that we're talking about, we lose 16 beds. That means 16 less people will have a place, a roof over their heads. The funding issue is going to be a problem. Finding with the other, if we do a senior development or a family development in the where on what is it, the 920. If we start over, we lose the July date for our tax credits. That means it puts us back. I thought we wanted to get affordable housing as soon as we could, as soon as it's possible. I think, we've talked this through, I thought. We've looked at the designs, and Mike has brought back his responses that there is a need for 3-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments. There will be seniors. We can put seniors in this development in the studio apartments. We're not going to leave them out in the cold. There will be space for them. And that's the beauty of this project, is the fact that it'll be a lot of families and it's intergenerational. And I love that idea. And then if we put the seniors in the future project on 920, that will be even more seniors that will have an intergenerational experience. And I just think that to postpone this for, I don't know how long it would take, and Mr. Fortin doesn't know, and Mr. Lanzafame doesn't know, but to postpone this when we were on the verge of getting this development done, I think it would be, I don't know, I'd be against it. And so now, Ms. Parazian, I'll hear from you. Laura?
Yes. Now I got confused, because we were told that 920 building is a historic building, right?
I'm sorry?
920. We were told that 920 is a historic building.
Yes, and it's
Am I
going
right?
it was going to be for seniors.
Senior, right. Now I got confused. How is this going to be both, Really, at this point, I got confused.
Yes, Ms. Parazian, it's two different projects. Can I have Mr.
I know.
Okay, Fortney, I wanted him to explain it to you. Do you need an explanation?
No, I know that, yeah, I know.
Okay.
But at this point, I got confused. I don't know.
Okay, if that's the case, I would like to suggest what I said, to do the big building, the 900, to make it, as I said, 1 bedroom and studios, and the other one for 2 and 3 bedrooms. So I would like to move the item based on that.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, apologize. Again,
Yes.
procedurally, you do not have that on your agenda, so you cannot do that today.
Okay,
But you can.
what we do?
So you have an item on there. If there's no support for that item on the agenda, then you can basically make a motion to direct staff to bring back an item
All right.
that would switch the projects. And then if you want to
Okay.
also direct staff for an item to consider negotiating directly with Meta or any other proposer, you can do that as well.
Okay, can you formulate that, what I said?
Excuse me, gentlemen, but I don't know that Ms. Parazian was finished.
Yeah, I did finish it.
You were finished?
Yes, I did.
The reason, Ms. Devine, I'm sorry again, the reason I'm saying this, because will be 32 extra units. I mean, there will be 32 units for families, more units for families. We will accommodate more families. And that's very important, as has been mentioned here. 144 in the big building, where right now, the way it is, we have 131. And this is only on the big building will be 144 versus 131 we have now. Then you add the 920 to it, so then the difference is 32 units. Why we don't accommodate more families?
Well, according to
Let's see.
Mr. Brotman, do you have a comment? And then I'll.
Yeah, I'm perplexed. I thought we discussed all of this before we went out with the RFQ.
Right.
And I just have not understood why at this point, after we've gone out, we've gotten responses from developers, all of a sudden we're thinking of things that we didn't think about before. I mean, this does not make us look good.
Because there are more units.
Excuse me, I'm not finished. This does not make us look good at all in the developer community. I think it's an embarrassment that we would get to this point and not have thought through some of these basic things. My preference would be to go ahead. It's a beautiful project. There's a lot of demand. We will easily fill it up. We have other projects coming. We have Pioneer coming. We have so many opportunities. Let's go move this. This was always an urgent issue. We want to get in before the deadline. We want to be competitive. We want to get this going, and it would be, I think, both a bad look for Glendale as well as a huge lost opportunity if we start tinkering with this at this point.
Well,
That's all I have to say.
Excuse me.
Brotman, and I just want to say that I agree with you. And when it comes down to the bottom line, it's 60 less individuals that have a roof over their heads. If we put in special needs, which I wanted to ask my colleagues about, if we can designate 10 or 20% of these units for special needs families, we would be even more competitive and be able to move this project forward more quickly. So I'm totally in agreement. Mr. Mayor,
Excuse me.
go ahead.
There are more units, more families. The problem is with 3 bedrooms. The 3 bedrooms, there is more than one breadwinner in it with 3 bedrooms. That it means they are in situation that they can handle their problem. Where when you have studios and 1 bedroom, then if 3 bedrooms, it means in that unit will be 5, 6 people or 8 people in that unit. There are more than one breadwinner. There is more than one person who's working. But where in the single one or 1 bedroom, hardly there are even one person who works. They're retired or otherwise. So the 3 bedroom, those who would come to the 3 bedrooms, they have opportunity to find something without much of a problem than the person who is single person or they are married, 2 people. So those who are singles and they are married 2 people, they are having more problems than a family of 8 people or 7 people or 4 people which are going to reside in those 3 bedrooms. They have more chance of getting jobs and getting money to handle their lives.
I don't know. I don't see the
understand.
reasoning there at all.
Well, let me jump in. Let me perhaps just clarify what the mayor is saying. I think it really comes down to the who has the most critical need for the housing. In my opinion, and perhaps in the mayor's opinion, it is those seniors whose family unit consists of either an individual or a couple that need the greatest help from this agency. I was not aware, it was not apparent to me what the total unit breakdown was when we discussed this 2 months ago or whenever we did that. And perhaps that would have been the best time to raise these concerns. I don't disagree. But I think we need to, and what the mayor is saying, that a senior who is on a fixed income, who maybe has additional health related issues, is really the type of person that we're targeting here. Now, if Meta Housing can't pivot and do the senior design for the 900 East Broadway, let us know now, because we'll gladly go out. I haven't heard Meta say that. Does Meta want out of the deal? Because we're maybe, at this point, I'm ready to go forward with Meta. I don't know if Christopher Maffris is from Meta. If you don't like it, let us know. We'll gladly immediately start the process if that's our direction to look for another developer. But I don't think that they would turn this down. I think it is a matter of redesign. I think staff is up to the task. We've put you under much greater time constraints before. Meta is based on the selection and the discussion that we've seen and your history qualifications, you're more than able to make this pivot. And I think that's what the mayor's trying to say, and that's sort of where I'm going on this at this point. Late? Yes, it's late. Should we have done it 2 months ago? Yes, we should have. But I think we can still make those deadlines for the tax credits.
And it's better to do it now rather than wait, because this project is going to take 2-3 years. 1 or 2 months delay is better than 2 or 3 years. And for 55 years, that those who are going to benefit from these buildings or these apartments. So I would like to do it now rather than wait forever. Yes.
Madam Chair, just a point to Mr. Najarian. Meta Housing can do either and would be interested in doing either.
I thought so.
I'm not altogether sure how this would pan out, but let me try and give you one more piece of information. When we lined these up, we lined up this 900 first because the tax credit in March will be predominantly families in Southern California. And then the July will be seniors in Southern California. So we had looked at this project in March, 920 in July, and then Pioneer would go the following. So we'd set them up in that order for a reason. Now, if this becomes a, quote, senior project, we'll put in for, and if we can, for March. But it's probably more likely a July award. So there's only 3 months in there. I'm not sure that we would want to compete with ourselves, but if the agency's thrust is on senior housing, you may just want to convert this one, leave the other 920 as a senior project as well.
Okay,
It's something to think
Ms.
about. They
Devine.
will compete against each other in
Ms.
tax credit
Ms.
rounds.
Devine.
Well, let Mr. Lanzafame finish.
Oh,
They will compete against each other if they need tax credits. The standard tax credit, although being a historic project, there are other sources of income. So
Mike,
another
or-
piece of information
Mike,
for, there are grants, historic grants and other, Mike,
That's right.
there's historic grants and other sources because it's a historic project. So again, if the authority now decides that senior is the focus, you could, rather than flip, you could keep the 39 units of senior, create 144 of senior, and make the whole property a senior project. Again, we would have to go sort that out. I do know that Meta is interested in that first phase if it becomes senior.
Ms. Devine.
Yes, Mayor?
What I was saying is, even we go with the big property, even just to do that, that's 144 units, which is more than what we want to do at this time with 131 units. Even the smaller units will be delayed. Still, we're going to have 144 units versus if you go along with what has been offered now, which is only 131 units. So the other 20 units, I don't think it will be delayed, but let's assume we didn't get the chance to finish it by July. Still, we have more units. 144 versus 131. Both properties, they contain 131 units. Just one big property can hold 144 units. So
All right, okay, all right, thank you, Mayor. Let me ask Mr. Fortney and Mr. Lanzafame another question, then I'll get to you, Councilmember Brotman. So we're talking about 13 units. That's the bottom line from what you just said. Mr. Fortney, Mr. Lanzafame, will we have to, will there be a cost to having the consultants redesign the interior of this building?
Yes. We will most likely lose some of, if not all of, because they've got to look at the whole building. But there's going to be some stranded investment.
Any idea how much? Is it worth 13 units?
It's at the 160.
Right, so we have contracted with KFA for the entitlements for both 900 and 920 East Broadway. The entitlement cost with KFA, $140,000 approximately on each of those two projects. Obviously, we're not entitled, so we haven't spent all 140,000, but we're probably halfway through. So we would lose roughly 140,000 if both projects converted, and then we'd have to start over with the entitlement. So, and then we also have contracted, I think, $63,500 with ARG to do the historic work on the 920 side. We have obviously not burned through all of that. We're pretty early in on the historic steps. But we would have to start that process over again because it was a senior product versus a family product. So that scope would change. So if I were to take a wild guess, I would say somewhere around $60,000 to $80,000 of money that we've spent in the entitlement process so far that would no longer, we would lose rent.
Councilmember Brotman.
No, I was just thinking when the comment was made about making them both senior, 900 and 920, I just remembered the being excited about this idea of having this, these two different kind of projects being able to interact, one being families and the other being seniors. We talked about this intergenerational kind of element. We talked about that alley and how it could be programmed. I was very excited about that. So I do not support making this all senior. I would, if the other votes are there on council, on this agency, I would move to go ahead and go forward with the project. I know it's opposition. I don't know where the votes fall right now.
Ms. Devine,
Mayor?
yes, I did not say both buildings to be senior. I said the big one to be for seniors, the little one for families, the 920 for the families. I didn't say both buildings to be for seniors. I didn't offer that.
So why don't someone make a motion, and let's see where the chips fall, and then we just.
Okay. I would like to move the item as it stands, the project as it stands.
6A1.
What would that be?
6A1, 6A1.
6A1, which would, let me just make sure, that would authorize the meta housing
For families.
for the family housing for 900 East Broadway. I would like to move that item.
And I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Authority Member Agajanian,
No,
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
No.
Najarian,
No.
Harazian,
No.
Chair Devine.
Okay, no. So we'll have an alternative motion?
no,
We need, or we just,
Wait, you seconded it.
pardon?
You seconded it. You wanna?
She can vote
Okay,
no.
never mind.
No, I'm asking Mr. Garcia. No, I'm asking Mr. Garcia. Do we need an alternate motion or what's our
Bring
next?
it back or something.
We don't need a motion because the item failed and we've already got some comments to bring it back. It would be useful, I think, to get a motion, just providing some direction to staff to bring
Okay.
back a couple of these items. So it would be a
Okay.
motion directing staff to bring back a report on negotiating on issuing or approving an ENA with Meta for a senior project at 900 East Broadway.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I moved the item.
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Authority Member Agajanian,
Yes,
Brotman,
No.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Harazian,
Yes.
and Chair Devine.
Well, since the other motion failed, I'll approve this one. Yes. Yes, we want to have this built. We want to get this done. Thank you. Next item, please.
Chair Devine, I do have a caller on the line. She called during the middle of business agenda 6A, and she really wants to talk for oral communication, but she was late about 15 minutes. Can we go back and accept her phone call? She is on the line for the last 30 minutes waiting.
Yeah, please, and let's just give her 2 minutes.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Alice, you have 2 minutes. Alice, you're live.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and City Council members and other staff. Last 2 meetings I was listening and I found that the city attorney didn't give the right information to you and you took the wrong decision about the rent freeze. So, Ms. Divine, you said that the landlords, I don't think will raise, but if you put the rent freeze, it won't affect them. So it's already. But if you don't put the rent freeze, so they can increase in that case. And I don't know why the city attorney didn't correct his mistakes. I listened to the two meetings and I asked Catherine Barger and Solis and others, and they confirmed that it was until November 30 that they have the freeze, and LA City has even longer. That LA County has until November 30. So I want to ask you to reconsider this. And it's very important. Most of the tenants are not landlords, so few are landlords, and you are taking on the side of the landlord, which is not correct. So the landlords have already got a lot of benefits from their mortgages and other benefits they have. So, and only few people are not paying their rent, and you have other ways, or they have other ways of correcting that too. So I ask you to extend the rent freeze. It's very, very important for most of the tenants in Glendale. So you should be on the side of the LA County. And Mr. Garcia should confirm why he was wrong and tell you that what was in his mind. I don't know what's the point of not telling the truth. At least he should correct his mistake. I'm asking you to correct this and go with the tenant side, not to take the landlord side, because they have already increased the rent so high that
Thank you, Alice.
there is no need for extra benefit for them.
Thank you,
This
Alice.
is an extra profit for them if they raise the rent. Thank you.
Is up. Thank you. What's the next item, please?
Next item would be 6B, City Attorney regarding consideration of amendment to bylaws of Glendale Housing Authority relating to meeting schedule and changes to authority member compensation. One, resolution amending the bylaws of the Glendale Housing Authority relating to meeting schedule and revising authority member compensation.
Okay. Mr. Galanian, we go to the
Yes,
city.
thank you. This Housing Authority Chair and members of Housing Authority, this report is brought to you in response to a request from the Housing Authority related to the frequency and the schedule of Housing Authority meetings, as well as the housing member compensation. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike Garcia, City Attorney, for a brief report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Housing Authority. As noted by Mr. Galanian, the Housing Authority requested a report on the frequency of the Housing Authority meetings. One of the concerns that was raised had to do with the stipend, or the per meeting stipend that is paid in conjunction with those meetings, and what might be some options for the Housing Authority's regular meetings. So the Housing Authority, per the bylaws, the Housing Authority meets on a weekly basis. The Housing Authority also meets in conjunction with the City Council, just as we did earlier this afternoon, for special meetings that are within the purview of both the City Council and the Housing Authority. With respect to the particular compensation pursuant to state law, the Housing Authority receives a stipend. The Housing Authority members receive a stipend for every meeting of $50 per meeting, not to exceed 4 meetings per month. Those are pursuant to our policy. Those stipends are paid for the occurrence of each regular meeting, but there would be nothing in the state law that would prohibit the stipend from being paid every time the Housing Authority meets in conjunction with the City Council or any other of the city bodies at a joint meeting when businesses of those agencies is being conducted. Would note that a couple other issues that we would note in terms of the frequency of meetings. So in addition to conducting business, the Housing Authority meetings also serve the purpose for individuals who want to contact the Housing Authority to discuss matters within the Housing Authority's purview, to raise those issues, as well as for both the Housing Authority members and the Housing Authority staff to provide announcements related to projects, Section 8 issues, lotteries, density bonus lotteries, and our own lotteries for the Housing Authority projects. So under the Brown Act, the Housing Authority, each legislative body of a local agency is required to have some form of regular meetings. It doesn't have to happen on a weekly basis. It can certainly happen monthly or twice a month. So a couple of decision points, I think, for the housing authorities. Do you want to meet? How frequently do you want to meet? Do you want to meet monthly or some frequency, or keep the regular meetings? The second component of the decision before the housing authority is housing authority, for example, can decide to only have a stipend paid when there's a business item on the agenda that's handled by the housing authority. That can include or not include joint meetings when there's an action item for both the city council and the housing authority to act jointly. So those are some of the options. Again, our recommendation, the staff does not have a recommendation other than that the housing authority should have some form of regular meetings. It can make them less frequent, at least monthly. Maybe, I think based on the amount of business that we have, as well as the number of times individuals from the public call in, and the number of times that housing authority has announcements for the public, it might behoove the housing authority to have 2 meetings a month. Most agencies that limit their meetings to twice a month usually do it on a set schedule per month. So it's either the first and third Tuesday or the second and fourth Tuesday, whichever is within the housing authority's discretion. So that's sort of the lay of the land in terms of how the regular meetings work, as well as how the per meeting stipend works. And happy to answer any questions and take direction from the housing authority as you desire.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. So we have any phone calls on this item?
No, there are no phone calls for this item.
Okay, great. So my colleagues who would like to go first, Mr. Kazakian, this was your suggestion. So do you have comments on or suggestions?
Yes, thank you. I'm glad that we're considering this. I hope we move forward with it. In looking at the meetings that we've had and the number of reports that we've had, I think it only makes sense that we consider, sorry, I was getting a little bit of feedback, that we consider meeting less and not collecting a stipend for simply approving minutes. In 2018 and 2019, between having 74 meetings, we only had 13 reports. We had 8 reports in 2018 and 5 reports in 2019, yet we met 36 times. In 2017, which was, I guess, a more relatively active year, there were 10 reports over 38 meetings. And as of September of this year, we had only had 5 reports out of 26 meetings, and just a few more added to that since then. So I think that it makes sense to just meet every other week. The only reason I say twice a month is because, as we're seeing today with one of the items where there wasn't full agreement on the issue and it needs to come back, I think having meetings only once a month would not be appropriate, but I think at least meeting every other week would be. So if that means we meet on the first and third Tuesday, or the second and fourth Tuesday, or second and last Tuesday, however staff recommends we go about it, that would be my desire too. And I would not want to collect the stipend for those times when we do not meet.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilmember Najarian.
So I don't have a problem if we want to trim down our meetings, but I think there's a misconception. Perhaps the public has a misconception that we're somehow enjoying a windfall when we have a housing authority meeting where there's no business items. Clearly, we hear from the public, like Alice calls in and talks about rent issues. It's oftentimes an opportunity for us during those slower meetings to ask staff to highlight issues. Where are we on Section 8? Where are we with the lottery program? To get information out to the public. It's certainly not a windfall. The stipend is $50, but I can assure everyone in the public listening that meeting or not, I spend almost as much time on housing authority issues during the week, be there a meeting or not, than I do on city council issues. We hear from, I hear from residents all the time about Section 8. When I had office hours pre-COVID, I would have hours of meetings of irate residents asking about Section 8. Irate residents asking, of not all irate, but concerned residents asking about the affordable programs. How do I get on it? Phone calls, not just at City Hall, but also at my law office about housing issues. That doesn't count discussions that calls that I get from developers of the affordable housing projects who want to talk and get an idea as to where we're going, what we're doing, what we're looking for. Staff briefings. I get pulled aside in the grocery store. The whole CDBG issues are also a carryover into the housing. So I don't want people to think, we had 92 meetings and there were only, 28 of them that had business actions. I mean, the work of a housing authority member continues nonstop, and it's many, many hours. It's not the situation where all we do is show up for a meeting. And clearly, I think when we were talking about compensating the housing authority members, the easiest way at that point to set some compensation was per meeting, rather than have us, of course, it's set by statute, but those making that statute at the state level said that's probably the best way, rather than try and figure out how much time they're devoting to that. It also serves, if I might add, as a training opportunity in Robert Rules of Orders and how to conduct a meeting for those council members who may someday, who most will obtain the seat of mayor. I know it did for me. Before I was mayor, I was a housing authority chair, and it certainly did help me understand how to run a meeting, even when there was nothing on the agenda. And I think those skills that were honed during those early years as a housing authority chair definitely helped me run a meeting when I was mayor. So, I mean, it's not the money, $50, please. I mean, we're not getting rich by any stretch of the imagination. I won't tell you what happens to my law practice, as I have devoted my commitment to the city. But I mean, if it doesn't look good, I hope it doesn't look good. I'm not going to fight this, but I just have to get that off my chest and let not so much council. I think my council members realize what the situation is, but those out in the public who scoff and say, "Oh, there they go, another meeting, a 2-minute meeting. There's another $50 in the bank, cha-ching." Boy, those housing authority members are getting rich off this thing, and we've heard those comments before. But anyway, that's just where I'm at. I hope the public realizes that it's a lot of work to be a housing authority member if you really want to be responsive to the community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Council Member. Let's see, who would like to go next? Mayor, would you like to add to this conversation?
I just want to make a friendly comment. I mean, on the way we have to meet. If it goes to twice a month, we can't say first and third or second and fourth, because that's not going to correspond with city council meetings. So we have to say first and third of city council meeting. That's the way we have to say if we want to have 2 meetings. So it will be first whenever city council in every month, first city council meeting and third city council meeting. Otherwise, then will be weeks that the housing authority should come and city council doesn't have meeting.
We can do that. I think for simplicity, it's easier to do first and third or second and fourth, and then as time goes on, what we would try to do is actually line up the council meetings to that. The city council meets on a weekly basis, but obviously sets a schedule at the beginning of the year with meeting cancellations. So it's a little hard to predict for the public, if you're saying it's based on whenever the council schedules, because that's more flexible depending on what schedule the council picks. But again, that's ultimately up to the council. And, we'll take whatever direction the council
No, but I
wants
want to be
I just-
clear. If we don't say with the city council meetings,
I understand what you're
to
saying.
correspond with city council meeting, there will be weeks that city council will not have a meeting, but housing authority will gonna have a meeting.
Right, and I understand, and my only suggestion was gonna be, you do that with the housing authority at the beginning of every year when you set the housing authority schedule as well. But again, we'll take the direction from the council.
Just to make sure it coordinates with council. Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Councilmember Brotman.
Yeah, I kind of want to echo some of the comments that Mr. Najarian made. I mean, I know in my case, and you're all the same. I mean, I spend virtually all my time on this, not just the housing authority, but the whole package, council, housing authority, and everything, constituent interaction and all that. I pretty much spend all my time on that. I would say I'm as busy as I ever was, and I'm not doing any other work. So, and the income is what, I don't know what, we get sub $20,000. So we are not getting rich on this. I do want people to understand that. I do it because, I love it. And, I'm glad I'm doing it. So, and there's no shortage of people willing to do it. That's important for people to understand. As for the $50, it doesn't matter to me personally, but I have two questions. One is if some of us were to say, okay, we will waive that $50. Well, actually, what I was thinking is perhaps we still meet on a regular basis. We meet every time because there could be public comments or whatever. We meet every time, but if there's no item on the agenda other than approving minutes, then we just don't get compensated for that. But we actually open and close the meeting. We're there, and just in case something comes up, I would be okay doing it that way. But I guess my question is then, the members of the housing authority who are the Section 8 members and tenants, now could they get treated differently? Because I worry that maybe somebody will say, well, I can't. I mean, we have a hard enough time, right? Having a hard enough time getting that seventh person. So would that be a discouragement? And could we treat the non-council members on the housing authority differently? And that's, I guess, a question for Mr. Garcia.
Housing Authority Member Brotman, I do believe because the statute creates the tenant commissioners, I think that the Housing Authority will have the authority to provide a different, compensation or the stipend for the tenant commissioner, so that it's, if the Housing Authority wanted to keep it as is, they could do that, or they could have it aligned across the board amongst all Housing Authority members.
Okay. Well, then in that case, my recommendation would be we continue with our meeting schedule. We agree that the council members on the housing authority do not receive a stipend unless there's an agenda item of some kind or some report or something along those lines. But that the tenant commissioners still retain that stipend, because when we get back after COVID, it still physically requires people to come in to a meeting, and there may not be much going on. So I wouldn't want them to lose that stipend, and I also wouldn't want us not to have meetings scheduled, because if the public wants to speak, there's always that opportunity. And like we said earlier, if there's something that we don't get to finish and we want to carry it over to the next week, it would still be convenient if we have the meeting scheduled.
So, Councilmember Brotman, let me get this right then. You are for keeping the meetings every week, but with no stipend for the council members, and keep the incentive. I call them I think it's an incentive for our resident authority members to keep their stipend in place. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I would even consider, increasing it to $100 or something like that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'll leave that to other people's.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, let's see, who haven't I heard? Laura Parazian, how do you feel about this?
So I'm a tennis member. You know what? I kind of am just feeling not comfortable to talk about the $50 stipend. But still, I agree with Mr. Brotman. If this COVID pretty soon we will just get over just COVID-19. I believe a lot of just activity members or community members will come over and just have something to say to the housing authority. And really, at that time, we need to have just regular meetings. But if it's for the community, that $50 will just help the community, I just agree. It's for me, it's hard to talk about this stipend, but I don't know.
Don't feel bad about that, Ms. Parazian. We're happy that you received that stipend, believe me. Okay, so
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I'm in favor of twice a month, and I'm also in favor of council not being paid or funded, but I do think that the resident authority members should receive that stipend. I think it's a good incentive for them, and every little bit helps. So I would vote to keep that, and I would say maybe we should meet the first and third Tuesdays before our regular meetings, and that's my choice. So I'm open for a motion. Councilmember Kasakian.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to address some of the points that were raised. Certainly, some good issues were raised. Councilmember Najarian is correct that we are not making money on this. This is a sacrifice to be able to serve the public. It's also rewarding in that we're able to do a public service, but it's not going to make or break. I hope it's not going to make or break anyone receiving the stipend. I do think that stipends are fair and just compensation for public service time given to do the work for the city. I would go as far, of course, not at this meeting, but I would like, and I've advocated for seeing all our boards and commissioners to receive a modicum of a stipend for the hours that they dedicate for their meetings, much like every other state agency or other body usually provides, and a way for us to say thank you for that service. But in terms of the meetings of the Housing Authority, again, I can't help but look back, just going only as far back as 2017, and up to today, and I may be off by just 2 reports and 2 meetings, but out of 138 meetings, we've only had 28 reports. That means that only 20% of the time, and that is a rough estimation, some meetings have more reports than one, but 20% of the time, of all the times we're meeting, there's actual business on this body. And it will be the argument that people will not be able to call in and express their opinions. Fortunately, we live in a tech age where people have multiple ways of reaching us, both individually, both collectively as a body, by email. We have the council meetings in the evening on Tuesday nights. And in terms of items that will come up, because inevitably they will, I don't believe that there's anything that stops us from having a special housing authority meeting. We can always have one to come back and discuss something that is time sensitive that we weren't able to come to a decision on the previous week. So we have that flexibility. It's certainly not something I want to see us use as a crutch to over rely on special meetings. I'm not meetings just for the sake of having those meetings. But I do think that it will be helpful to the public to know that housing authority items will be discussed at a set time twice a month and not have to have that compensation, which I believe the staff report said it's only $350 collectively that the savings is in the meeting. I believe that's just the stipend aspect of it. We also are talking about staff time. We're talking about all the other small expenses here and there. So it adds up. I would like to make a motion that we have, and let me ask the city attorney and the city manager, do you need us, or the executive director of the housing authority, do you need us to specifically decide at this meeting which times of the month we meet on? Or would it be better for you to go back, look at when, in accordance to the calendar and to deadlines that certain HUD and other requirements have, is better for us to meet? Meaning, if the choices are between the first and the third, as Housing Authority Chair Devine mentioned, or the second and the fourth, is there a particular preference, or would you need to look at that before bringing something for us to vote? Or would you like direction now?
Council Member Kasakian, Housing Authority members and Chair, we would like a direction. As stated previously, we would go back, and once we set the schedule for the rest of the year for council, based on your direction, we'll make sure that those align with your choice of housing authority meetings. So a specific direction would be helpful, yes.
And I would agree with that. I mean, it's easier for us to plan if you direct first and third or second and fourth, and then we can go back and look through the schedule and see if, for example, if we would need to add some special meetings because some of those would coincide with the vacation days that we've already have scheduled on the city council's calendar. So I would agree with that.
I guess my question is the first and second, the difference between the first and second Tuesdays, are we going to have more council meetings that are going to be canceled or dark because of holiday schedules, et cetera, that are on the first or on the second? And I have no way of knowing that without the calendar in front of me.
Ms. Devine, may I add something? We will leave it to the Mr. Garcia and Mr. Golanian to look and find 2 meetings per month. So they will look at the schedule which we have, and they will correspond to.
If I may, yes. That's not a regular meeting. That's you need to set a regular. It needs to be either. It could be once a month. It could be every other week. It could be first and third, second and fourth. But it has to be regular. We can't set it as staff. It has to be established. It has to be established in a resolution. So that's why we're asking. Just set it at first and third, or second and fourth, or every other week, or monthly, and then we'll look based on that. And I understand Housing Authority members Kasakian's concern, and the only thing I can say that the council's and the holiday vacation schedule depends. It varies year to year depending on what the mayor's preference is at the time. So we have to establish a regular schedule. It has to be set by resolution, and then what we would do is whatever you decide. And I don't think it, honestly, I don't think it matters whether you set it at first and third or second and fourth. And we will go back and we'll then coincide that with our council calendar and see whether any of those meetings would be canceled. And then we would let you know. And then we would also look at whether or not, I anticipate with every other, twice a week, or twice a month, then you're going to probably have some special meetings from time to time, because you just, from a timing perspective, we might have to put something on the calendar. So our recommendation is just to give us direction, approve a regular meeting schedule that is either, if you're inclined to do twice a month, either do it first and third or second and fourth, and then we'll work on the schedule from there and get you the information of what dates will have to be canceled and which dates would have to be added by special meeting after the fact.
Excuse me, when we say twice a month, is not enough?
No.
Oh, it's not. All right.
Has to be first.
Sorry.
We have to be specific about the resolution, and if you want it the first and third, or the second and the fourth. And then, of course, don't forget to include the stipend. I hope for the resident authority members. So, Mr. Sakian, do you have a
Sure.
Formulation? Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we have our housing authority meetings twice a month on the first and third Tuesdays of the month, along with and the recommendation that you have, or your suggestion, Housing Chair Divine, regarding stipends is what is it specifically, so I may include it and not,
I just want, I would like to ensure that our resident authority members are given
Compensated.
the incentive, the $50 per meeting. I'm not really concerned about council because,
okay.
yeah.
Is there sorry to just ask one more question so we can clarify this. Mr. City Attorney, can we decouple the stipends of the resident members from the housing authority members elected by the public?
In my view, yes, you can.
Okay, so then by decoupling, I would also make part of my motion, in addition to the first and third Tuesday of each month, to also decouple the stipend of elected housing authority members from the appointed housing authority members who are tenant members from the public.
So just so I'm clear.
Clarify that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm clear. Are you saying, so the tenant commissioners would receive the stipend regardless of whether or not there was a business item on the agenda? And then the housing authority members that are the elected council members would only receive it when there's a business item on the agenda?
Yes, what I would actually like to see is for them, we receive right now a stipend of $50 per month. I would just like to see tenant members receive the, whatever it is, $200 a month flat per month.
If I may, the stipend is controlled by the housing authority law. That is, it's $50 per meeting, not to exceed 4 meetings per month. So you can pay per meeting. It can't exceed $50 and it can't exceed 4. But so it can't be a flat rate. It has to be set at the $50 per meeting. And the authority that the council have is to, for example, could waive it for the elected council members and only provide it for the tenant commissioners, or provide it for the elected council members only in the event that there's a business item on the agenda, and provide it for the tenant commissioners regardless. The only other point I want to make is, and we want to get clarification on this, is does the housing authority wish to have the stipend paid for joint meetings? So there might be a regular housing authority meeting that doesn't have anything on the business, but the housing authority and the council are meeting jointly. Do you want to have the stipend paid for those? Because currently they're not. Right now the housing authority stipend is only paid for the regular meetings. And then does business include closed session items? That's the only other thing I want to add, just so we're clear. Because frankly, those closed session items, there's a lot more discussion on those sometimes from time to time, or as much as the open session items. So I just want to make sure I have clear direction on that.
Okay, so I'd like to hear from my colleagues, but I would just suggest that we continue with the $50 stipend for all council and resident authority members, and keep it simple. And Councilmember Najarian, did you want to add something? You look like
so I think we should include a housing authority meeting that has a closed session item should be considered as a business agenda item. I can't tell you the hours we spent back there. So the other thing is, if there's a report, no business agenda to vote on, but if there's a report that we receive, more than a de minimis report, it might be tough to define, but the report, that should also be considered. But a regular open the meeting, approve the minutes. Now, approving the minutes is not a business item, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so your typical meeting that I envision us not receiving any compensation for is open the meeting, approve the minutes, any comments, callers, nothing, move to adjourn, 2-minute meeting, nothing. But if there's closed session items, or if there's reports from staff or business items, then that would qualify the members for a $50 stipend, except the Section 8 members who, regardless of what happens, just the opening of the meeting would qualify them for the $50.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Ms. Ms. Divine, I have a question from Mr. Garcia.
Okay, Mayor, go ahead.
It has, if you say like 200 a month to the commissioners, is that illegal to say? For the
It doesn't
housing
comply with the statutes. $50 per meeting, not to exceed 4 meetings per month. So it has to be based on the number of meetings, and it has to be $50 per meeting.
Oh, So if
Mr.
we don't-
Garcia, are we overcomplicating this by giving you all of these, if there's an agenda item, if there isn't?
No, I think we can put that together.
Oh.
And in fact, we touched on it a little bit in the report. So I think it's all, I just, I will make sure, and Mr. Kasakian, in the motion, we'll make sure it's all laid out clearly in the motion before we take a vote on it. So
Okay.
if, I don't know if, Mr. Kasakian, if you have more, or if you want me to restate some of the things that I heard, because you were sort of making a motion, and then
I think what we've been collectively coming up with the latter part of this motion, and that's fine. I appreciate the input from my colleagues. I think it's important. So the one thing that we're clear on is the first and third of the month, and in addition, in terms of the compensation, tell me what you have understood our direction to be.
Sure. So what I've heard is for the tenant commissioners, it would be $50 per meeting, not to exceed 4 meetings per month. For the commissioners that are the elected council members, it would be $50 per meeting, only when there is business item on the agenda, including closed session. I have not heard on the joint meetings. So as it stands now, it's just for the regular meetings when there's business on the Housing Authority agenda, including closed session, then the stipend would be $50 per meeting. And I think that's what I've heard.
Reports?
Report, and any report that comes to the Housing Authority is placed on the business agenda. So it's either the business agenda or a closed session agenda.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds fair.
So now what, I'm sorry.
Your motion? That's your motion.
No, I'm sorry, 1 second. So if there is a meeting, I'm sorry, if there is no meeting, but there is a closed session, that's considered a meeting?
Yes, that's a meeting. That is a meeting. So you're having a regular meeting and you have closed session on there. That's as part of Housing Authority member Najarian's addition to the motion. That would be considered business for purposes of the stipend.
How about joint meeting?
I haven't heard council hasn't discussed that.
So joint meeting also you consider, I offer that you consider as a meeting, but however, not to pass that 4 meeting,
Yeah,
right?
and we couldn't. So does council member, Housing Authority member Kasakian, are you amenable to adding that to your motion?
Sure.
Okay. So then we include business meetings, any business item, any closed session, and any joint meeting involving the Housing Authority,
Basically not to exceed $200.
not to exceed $50 at 4 meetings per month, correct?
By law.
By law.
I'm fine with that. Absolutely.
Okay, I second it.
All
and
right,
then-
roll call, please. Mr.
Oh,
Jimmy?
there, Mr. Garcia was saying something.
Just one point, I noted this in the report. The resolution also includes an amendment to the bylaws to have the Housing Authority meetings start at 1 o'clock. We're not going to actually move the meetings up to 1 o'clock. That's just so that we have meeting flexibility with our other joint meetings and special
course.
council meetings,
Sure.
because we end up kind of having to move stuff around. So that's noted for the record.
No, how that makes it different? What's the purpose of adding that?
So sometimes by our bylaws, the Housing Authority business agenda starts at 2:30, but sometimes we'd like the flexibility to start that meeting a little bit earlier, depending on what's on the agenda. So this will allow you to do that.
Oh,
That's fine.
All righty, roll call, please.
Authority member Agajanian,
yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Parazian,
Yes.
Chair Devine.
Yes, and what's next, please?
Authority member and staff comments?
Any comments? Been a long day, hasn't it? All right, what's next, please?
Adjournment?
I have a motion.
May
So
I move
moved.
them? All right.
Second.
Moved and